Hello everyone, Brian here, continuing work on San Pedro de la Nave. I wanted to do a short update, and we're working still on the roofs, all of the roof tiles here. And since the last video, I'm probably into this somewhere between 6 and 10 hours. These are slow models. I've talked about that before. This is not your plastic models where you're moving on from thing to thing, building up the courses of the walls, building up the roofs. This takes a long time. This is a slow and meditative process. It does well, you do well to have podcasts, the radio to listen to, maybe watch TV while you're doing this. These take a long time. These models take a lot of patience. This is not for folks who have ADD and want to move quickly. So where am I at? So you can see I built up, the front is done entirely. On the side, I'm built up right to the center piece here. I have one more row to put on over there. And on this side, I've come just up to the top this evening, and I need to lay a set of center tiles in down here. Then what I'll do is I'll file those down flat and hopefully put one more row across the top here. I've still got the sacristy to do, and I've got the tower to do, and my guess is that it's probably going to be another 10 hours before I'm done with the roofing. So the roofing takes a long time. So what am I doing here? I am overlapping all of the tiles about 1 millimeter. And on each individual tile, I'm having to sand the sides just slightly so they're slightly curved on both edges, on this edge and this edge of that one. Doing that and then laying the tiles across here to make sure I'm happy with them, and then taking them off and gluing them individually, what I'm finding is it's taking about an hour to do a total of 30 of these. And the way that works out is there's 7 and a half, maybe 8 here, there's 7 here, there's 7 there. And so what I'm finding is I can do this bottom row and this row and the same thing on the other side in about an hour. And there are 6 levels to this going up. So I'm working 6 hours to get, the front sides of this. And then in theory, I'd be doing another 6 hours to get the back sides of these roofs and this together. I haven't done it in that order, but that's about what it would take. So it's a long process. And again, if you decided you didn't want to put these little gaps in here, and if you decided that you didn't care if there was some undulation to the roofs, you could probably do it a lot faster, but I'm trying to be very careful with that. When I put a roof together like this, the next thing I do is I come in and I sand that down even, so all the way across the top here, I've got a nice level surface to put the next row. And that means that I don't have any gaps going horizontally here. You might decide you're going for a more rustic look, and therefore it's not as important to you to work that way. The other struggle that I had is the instructions say to overlap each of these tiles about 1 millimeter. So you end up with about 6 going up here and 6 going up here, and then you've got a tile in the center. And in this case, in the front, the width was about the width of one tile. And so I was able to put an underlayment of them down there, sand them flat, and then put one across the top here that I put these little grooves in on all 4 sides in this case. I had to be careful here because even doing that, I'm rising up above the level of the windowsill over here. Now this is a small model, that doesn't matter a whole lot, but still architecturally it doesn't look quite right, right? Your windowsill should be above the level of the roof, otherwise you potentially got water coming in. So you want to make sure you don't make this ridge line too high. Now I had a different problem here, and it's probably because I didn't overlap these quite as carefully as I did on the front. And so you see all along the top here, I've got a gap, and I've got a gap on this side too. So I laid down an underlayment, I sanded it across here so I had a nice flat surface. Now, what am I going to do across there? If I take a piece and put it here, I run the risk that you're going to be able to see the gap because it's too narrow. I could also put it this way and sand it back some so that it just slightly overlaps the gaps. It would be narrower going this way, which would make it look different from the front. I haven't quite decided what I'm going to do there. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the box and I'm going to try and find tiles that are just slightly wider so that I can put a single tile on the front over here and it'll overlap those two gaps and you won't be able to see them. Meanwhile, on the side I just got to this point with, this is narrow enough a gap that I'm probably going to be able to work this just like I did the front over here, and it's not going to be a problem. But this is to say, it's really trial and error as you work your way up and try and figure out what you're going to do with each one of these things. The other thing that I had a little bit of struggle with is I noted before that when you lay these things, they're very wide going up like this, and it's not a very realistic look. It's way too thick. And so what I do is I come again across them and I sand them down so that you get thinner edges along here, which gives for a more realistic look as you stand back a little bit. But what I found is on this portion, I was a little too aggressive with my sanding, and I got in very close, so I had very little shadow line left on these sides. And what I found, I've cleaned it up a little bit, but I ended up with edges that were rough and that chipped away a little bit and weren't very sharp anymore. And what I had to do is I had to come in with a square sanding file and go in along the edges and clean them up. But I did a better job here on the bottom sides where I left a little bit more edge on the bottoms, and so I didn't run into that problem with chipping and creating problems. So I'm going to be much more careful when I do this side and the other side to make sure I don't run into that problem again. So my guess is I'm into this for probably another 10 hours or so. This is why I've got a couple of models going at the same time. This can be, even with podcasts and the radio, or maybe you're sitting watching TV when you're working on those things. This is a long, slow process to put these roofs on. So I'm thinking I've got about another 10 hours to go to finish this all up before I can finally start working on the landscaping and building the doors and cleaning up the windows and doing what I need to finish off the model. So it's long. I noted in an earlier video, some folks have asked me, are these good models for kids? If your kid's a perfectionist, this is not a model for them. If your kids are patient and meticulous and they like sitting and thinking and meditating or listening or watching something, then this may be fine. But these take a long time. They look great, as you get into them. But these are definitely not a quick build. So anyway, that's where I am. And the next time we get together on this model, I hope to be working on doors and doing landscaping. And between now and then, I've got a couple of other models I'm working on different stages on, and I switch out between them when I get exhausted doing any one particular thing. And this roofing is exhausting. So that's all for now. Like, subscribe, comment. I'd appreciate hearing any hints and tricks anybody might have on this process. And thank you for joining me. Bye-bye.